Hi and welcome to Sims Racing. WRC 10 has been a mixed bag ever since its release early September this year. The game has several good and interesting features such as the stage layout, tarmac handling and livery editor. However, it also suffers from quite a few issues like the very poor audio quality, outdated graphics and horrendous graphical optimization. Both the good and bad elements should feel very familiar to people who played their previous titles, as those games suffered from pretty much the same problems. Having said that, we can't expect a smaller game studio like Thrasing, who are obligated to release a WRC game each year, to suddenly deliver a perfect title. Luckily for them, they have the opportunity to improve their product post-launch, which is exactly what we'll be discussing now, as Thrasing released their first major update on October 21st. So in today's video I'll go over the patch notes, talk about the new content and also look ahead, which includes some interesting speculation at what's to come when their second major update hits in November. Right, get yourself strapped in and let's dive deeper into WRC 10's October update. Now let's have a look at the patch notes first and see what the update offers us in terms of additional content. I'm not going into too much detail at the moment, as I'll take a closer look at the new location and cars later on. So first of all, we have the new Ypres Rally Belgium location, which has 7 stages. We also have 3 new cars added to the game: the Fiat 131 Obutto, which is completely new to the franchise, the Ford Escort Mark II RS 1800, a car that was in WRC 8 and 9, and the Ford Fiesta WRC 2017, which featured in WRC 7. With those 3 new cars came 3 new historical events, 2 in Portugal and 1 in Finland. And finally, Thrasing also added 250 new decals to the livery editor and a new and improved UI, as well as a pace note chart to the co-driver mode. Next up, let's check out the fixes that came with the patch. As this is their first major update, there should be quite a few significant ones. There's an issue with the Citroën Zara's wipers that has been fixed, as well as the problems in regards to saving liveries in the livery editor. The crew members that were hiding from you in the career mode seem to be found as well. There were some fixes to stages in Portugal, Estonia and Finland, but I'm not so sure what they actually fixed. They also made sure that the game no longer crashes on long stages such as El Puma. Then we have an issue that has been resolved for the Logitech G27 steering wheel, and last but not least, they added some GPU optimizations and fixed several localization issues. So all in all, when it comes to major bug patching, there's not really much there in terms of impactful fixes. Sure, there are the GPU optimizations added, but it clearly wasn't intended for mine, yet. I'm still having the same graphical optimization issues regarding frame rate. There's still a constant minor stuttering, with some major ones sprinkled on top as well, which is something you might have noticed in my recent videos featuring the new Ypres Rally. Besides that, since the update, my wheel goes completely numb from time to time halfway through a stage, and there are plenty of other things that still go wrong. Honestly, just like many other players, I expected more from their first major update in regards to graphical optimization. Hopefully the November update will bring more impactful fixes across the board, because things like the graphical optimization issues seriously hurt the game, as it ruins the enjoyment of playing WRC 10 quite significantly. With that out of the way, let's take a closer look at the new content, starting off with the Fiat 131 Abarth. As this is a completely new addition to the franchise, it looks better than quite a few other historical cars in terms of quality. The engine and exhaust audio, on the other hand, are of the same below average quality we're used to from the WRC games nowadays. The handling though was a tad bit of a surprise. As with all the other rear-wheel drive cars, I expected it to handle like a 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive car, but on the Ypres stages at least, it does feel a bit more tail-happy and controllable. And to be clear, better does not mean that it's good now, as it continues to be miles away from just being decent. Next up, we have the Ford Escort Mark II RS 1800. As is the case with most historic cars, the 3D model looks extremely outdated, both in the showroom and out on the stages. The main reason for that most likely has to do with the fact that it was just copy-pasted from WRC 8, which is when it was first introduced to the franchise. It also featured in WRC 9, but didn't get any updates back then, and it looks like this is the case as well for WRC 10. The engine and exhaust audio are also far below average, which we all suspected would be the case. The handling is more or less the same as that of the Fiat 131 Abarth. The third and final addition to the car list is Ogiers' 2017 Ford Fiesta WRC. The 3D model was taken from their WRC 7 title, but it has received some updates in order to be on the same level of quality as the other current gen WRC cars in the game. The engine and exhaust audio is once again below average. This car sounds pretty much exactly the same as the 2021 Ford Fiesta WRC or the Hyundai i20 WRC or the Toyota Yaris WRC. Yeah, they really don't sound much different from one another. The handling is more or less the same as the 2021 Ford Fiesta, which is to be expected. So what are my conclusions regarding the new cars? Well, adding these three to any game would be fantastic because of their historical value and prestige. However, I would love to see a brand new car that hasn't been in any rally game for quite some time, if ever, and still has that historical impact. Even though they are legendary cars, they never give us that exciting wow factor like the Datsun 240Z, the BMW M1 Pro car, the Porsche 911 SCRS or the Subaru Legacy RS from Dirt Rally 2.0. Having said that, we know there's another car coming in November which might be a wow factor surprise, but more on that in a bit. Now let's turn our attention to the new location, the Renties Ypres Rally Belgium. As some of you might know, I live right in the center of the region where the stages of the actual Ypres Rally event are held. I've been attending the rally for over 2 decades and I know the area and the stages themselves like the back of my hand. Besides that, I've been begging rally game developers to add the event to their roster for years, without much luck though. So you shouldn't be surprised that I was ecstatic when they announced the Ypres Rally would be part of WRC 10. And you also shouldn't be surprised that I'm going to be very critical here, especially in regards to authenticity. Right, let's go over what we have here. The Renties Ypres Rally Belgium location offers us 7 stages. We have a shakedown stage, Dekkebus and Dekkebus reverse, Camelberg and Camelberg reverse, and finally Zonnebeke and Zonnebeke reverse. That all sounds great until you look a bit closer. This location actually just has one stage, Zonnebeke. All the other stages are basically sections or reverse options of it. Once you get the hang of this one, that's about it. There's not even a super special stage we can enjoy like most other locations have. I was expecting one to be there featuring some iconic sections of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, but that region is completely omitted unfortunately. It doesn't take long before it becomes very repetitive and boring. If it weren't for my friend Daniel Johansson, who challenges me by beating each of the world records I set, I would have quit driving the Ypres location after just a few days. In my opinion, it's just not good enough, especially considering all the hype and build up around it. Each location, including this one, should at least have 2 long and unique stages or 1 extremely long one. Dirt Rally 2.0 offers us at least that, and so should WRC 10, because replayability is a major factor in the longevity of a game. Having that will result in players enjoying locations and appreciating the game as a whole for far longer. Now how about the stages themselves? Are they any fun? Yes, they absolutely are. As is the case with other locations, Ypres has a combination of fast-flowing sections as well as several narrow and technical ones. There are also some fun and unexpected stretches in there too, like the golf course. Driving the WRC or R5 cars is a blast and a challenge, and I applaud the stage layout KT Racing designed. Having said that, there is one major problem with the new Ypres location. It's just not the Ypres Rally. If those stages were not linked to a real rally event, I wouldn't be able to say anything negative about them. However, they are, which means that players expect a certain degree of authenticity, and there's not much of that to be found here. Firstly, as you can see on your screen, the real Dekkebus and Camelberg are close to one another in proximity, but Zonnebeke is in a completely different part of the region. They just took the names of the real stages and stuck them on their fictional ones. For people that know the event, this just makes them go, "You what?" And I know something like this is not important to most of you, however that's not where it ends. I know the developers came to the region for research purposes, driving the length of one or multiple stages, recording everything. I'm not sure what happened with the footage afterwards, but pretty much none of it was used when designing the stages. 99% of the layout is completely fictional and has barely anything in common with the actual real-life stages. I must admit that I did notice a handful of corners and or landmarks which resemble something from reality. We have this majestic castle which represents the Belvedere on the Camelberg. This most likely represents the famous corner where drivers go into the cobblestones to start their Camelberg ascent. However, the surface types have been reversed.
100 sur quitter droite, 30 tours de glisse, 80, Droite 140 plus corde à fond.
Then we have this part of the stage which looks fairly similar to what we have in real life.
Right 3 into left 2 medium, don't cut.
Here is what looks like the notorious and extremely tricky jump.
Left 5 tightens into hard brake, hairpin left, house in.
And finally there are tight corners around houses like this one in the actual Ypres rally as well.
Sur 5 en droite 20 plus les pagnes parasées très étroit. 200. Gauche 160 tours de titre.
It does have plenty of corners with dust and gravel on the inside as well as the typical junctions, but not much more. The regular country roads themselves are just far too wide and not nearly as bumpy as they should be. The cobblestone sections on the Camelback on the other hand are generally too tight and narrow.
Gauche 80 plus très long, ferme titre gravier. 80 plus très long, ferme titre gravier. Pour sommet à fond. Pour sommet à fond, 120. Sommet en droitie pour gauche max sur 80.
Besides, the cars are actually floating over it as the tyres never touch the pavement. And finally, the ditches and cuts are far too shallow and gentle.
Caution, hard brake, square right. Left 3 into right 2, don't cut.
That is what's so unique, challenging and memorable about the rally. Not having any of those vital features implemented correctly removes any and all of the event's uniqueness and character for which it is so famous. If they added those aspects more or less as it should be, I wouldn't be bothered about all the other stuff which isn't authentic when it comes to the environment. Most of the fields in the area have crops on them like wheat or hops during the time of year the event is being held. There were sections this year where drivers felt like they were going through a tunnel because of how high the crops were, but we don't find any of that in WRC 10. Apart from that, the brick houses only seem somewhat authentic when you look at them from afar. And as far as I can remember, this type of house doesn't really exist here. You also won't find most of the agricultural buildings and equipment they used in the game, such as this type of windmill, silo, barn structure, or greenhouse for example. I could go on, but I think you get the picture. So what's my verdict for the new Ypres Rally Belgium location? Well, in my opinion it has the best stages of any tarmac location in WRC 10, but only if you completely disregard the fact that it should resemble an authentic Ypres rally. I've seen other people say the same thing when it comes to their home rallies, and now I truly understand their frustration. I also would have loved to see another unique stage either from the Ypres area or preferably from the iconic Spa-Francorchamps region. So again, don't get me wrong, the stages are really fun to drive, but they are nowhere near authentic, something we as players do expect from an officially licensed WRC game. Right, what are my final thoughts on the October update, the first major patch for WRC 10? It is not as spectacular or impactful as I would have hoped. I'm not going to repeat my thoughts regarding the new Ypres rally location as I just told you a few seconds ago, but the cars are okayish, not much more. The new historical rally events are simple and don't offer anything special or unique, as you can create the same car and stage combination in quick rally mode, and the fixes that rolled out with the patch are not as major as they should be. All in all, I'd give it a 5 out of 10 at best, all things considered. Now before I end the video, let's have a quick look at what's still to come with the second major update in November. When it comes to features, there will be an updated clubs mode which should offer more support towards online competitions and additional decals you'll be able to use in the livery editor. The patch will also bring us another new location, the Acropolis Rally Greece, which I'm looking forward to. It will have 5 new historical rally events as well, and 1 new car. Which car it'll be is still up in the air. However, I did read a very interesting article a few days ago which might shed some light on the matter. There's a link to it in the description down below, by the way. According to a source at VW Motorsport, the 2017 Polo WRC, or its livery, not sure which one specifically, but I presume it's the car, will make an appearance in a game at some point in the future, and that's something we should all be rather excited for. Back in 2017 the car was developed under the then new regulations, but didn't get through the homologation process in time. VW Motorsport was eventually forced to pull out of the WRC because of internal restructuring after the whole emissions affair. They were still hoping to homologate the new Polo and enter the 2017 season later on, with the cars being run by a privateer team. We saw a similar situation when Citroën pulled out Fourier and Kronos Racing took over running official Zaras during the 2006 season for Loeb, Sordo, and even Colin McRae. However, during meetings with the FIA and other manufacturers, the latter wouldn't agree to VW's proposals, which led to the 2017 Polo WRC disappearing into the pages of rally history. Now, if there's any truth to the rumor, it is very likely that this is going to be the car coming in the November update. Another option would be that the Polo will make an appearance in WRC 11, KT Racing's final game for the franchise. Having said that, there is a third possibility here. The rumor mill surrounding a new dirt rally game is still spinning away. Many people, including myself, continue to speculate that a successor to Dirt Rally 2.0 is expected to see the light of day in the spring or summer of 2022. A car like the 2017 Polo WRC is not license bound like the other modern WRC cars, as it was never officially homologated. Considering that Codemasters will only obtain the WRC license from the 2023 season onwards, they could potentially make a deal for the 2017 Polo WRC with VW directly and add it to the roster for a potential Dirt Rally 3. All of this is very intriguing and definitely worth keeping a close eye on. But for now, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed it, and if that is indeed the case, feel free to leave a like. If you want to see more of our content in the future, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. It truly helps out the channel quite a lot. Thank you very much for watching, good luck and goodbye.